North Korea has fired a ballistic missile this morning. According to Seoul's military, the missile launch prompted Japan to briefly issue a seek shelter warning to residents of the northern Hokkaido region. South Korea's military said it had detected one ballistic missile with a medium range or longer fired from the Pyongyang area. The country's Joint Chiefs of Staff said that the South Korean and US intelligence, they're analyzing the specifics, adding that they were maintaining utmost readiness through close coordination with the United States. Japanese officials later confirmed that the missile had not fallen within the country's territory and posed no threat to the residents. Brazilian President Lula da Silva has arrived in Shanghai in an official visit to China. Lula is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss common interests. Lula traveled with a delegation of 8 cabinet ministers, including Environment Minister and 5 governors from Brazil's northeastern states, including Bahia, where a Chinese consortium is building a record-breaking bridge. With this visit, Lula is seeking to put Brazil back on the international stage after a period of relative isolation by former President Jair Bolsonaro. China overtook the United States as Brazil's top trading partner in 2009 and is a major market for Brazilian products. Brazil is also the largest recipient of Chinese investment in Latin America. French President Emmanuel Macron has said that France's position on Taiwan remains unchanged after his comments on the issue were met with backlash. Macron, in an interview, had cautioned against being drawn into a crisis over Taiwan driven by a quote-unquote American rhythm and Chinese overreaction. These comments brought criticism from some politicians and commentators in Europe and the United States. While clarifying his comments on Wednesday, Macron said that he favored the current status quo in respect of the island and does not support provocations.
The Heritage Foundation.
Former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has criticised French President Emmanuel Macron and EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen's visit to China last week. She described the visit as a sign of weakness and a divide in the West which does not exist. Truss feels that Western allies need to support the defense of Ukraine and sees the defense of Taiwan as a direct interest of Europe. Truss said that the idea of treating China as just another global player is wrong. She added that the West needs to be more skeptical about what is said by China and what its promises are, and there is a need to ensure West is working together as an alliance. A spokesperson for the German Foreign Ministry has stated that Berlin is very concerned about the situation in the Taiwan Strait. Tensions between Taiwan and China will feature in talks for Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock is set to hold during a trip to China this week, adding that Berlin is also reviewing its decision to allow China's shipping company COSCO to take a stake in Hamburg Port Terminal. Former US President Donald Trump is suing his former lawyer Michael Cohen for more than $500 million. The lawsuit comes after Cohen, once Trump's loyal fixer, testified before a Manhattan grand jury that later indicted Trump on 34 felony counts for falsifying business records. The lawsuit accuses Cohen of violating his attorney-client relationship with Trump by revealing his confidential information and spreading falsehoods in books, podcasts, and media appearances. Cohen was a top executive at Trump's real estate company and then worked as his personal lawyer when Trump assumed office in 2017. Former US President Donald Trump said he will still run for president in 2024, even if he is convicted of a crime. He made this a statement just days after he was arraigned in a Manhattan court and charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Last week, Trump pleaded not guilty to all 34 counts. Prosecutors have accused him of orchestrating payments to 2 women before the 2016 election to suppress the publication of their sexual encounters with him. Local government officials in Tennessee have voted to return the second of two Democratic state lawmakers who were expelled last week for protesting gun violence on the chamber floor. Lawmaker Justin Jones has already been sworn back in after officials in Nashville, where his district is located, voted unanimously on Monday to restore him on an interim basis. On Wednesday, a county commission in the United States, Tennessee, also voted to send Justin Pearson back to the state's legislature. US President Joe Biden, who's on a 4-day visit to Ireland, received a homecoming welcome in the town of Dundalk on Wednesday. Crowds lined the streets despite the rain to welcome the president, who shook hands with locals before visiting a restaurant and speaking at a nearby pub. Biden, who's fiercely proud of his Irish heritage, spent over half a day in Northern Ireland, where he met with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak before leaving for the Irish Republic for 2.5 days of speeches and meetings with officials as well as distant relatives. A day after a fire broke out at a local recycling plant in Indiana, United States, a massive column of smoke could be seen over the plant. The fire prompted officials to order thousands of locals to evacuate the area. According to local media reports, while firefighters were able to contain the fire to the facility grounds, the toxic nature of the fumes it's raised safety concerns. Officials say teams are taking samples of the water immediately surrounding the fire to test for possible contamination. E-cigarette company Juul has agreed to pay $462 million to settle claims by 6 US states that it unlawfully marketed its addictive products to minors. With the deal, Juul has now settled with 45 states for more than $1 billion. The states had accused Juul of falsely marketing its e-cigarettes as less addictive than cigarettes and targeted minors with glamorous advertising campaigns. The company, however, did not admit wrongdoing in the settlement. US radio giant NPR has said that it will no longer post fresh content of its 52 official Twitter feeds after the organization was labeled as state-affiliated media by the social media platform. NPR said in a statement that it had made the decision after Twitter refused repeated requests to remove the inaccurate label. Other than NPR, British broadcaster BBC has also objected to Twitter labeling it as government-funded media on the company's main account.
Ideally, most of America.
Ukraine's defense minister has said that the alleged Pentagon document leaks contain a mix of true and false information about the country's military. During a briefing in Madrid with his Spanish counterpart, the Ukrainian defense minister said, and I'm quoting here, "There's a lot of information which does not correspond with reality." He also said that he believes the leaks were a deliberate attempt to sow discord among Kiev's allies. Some national security experts and US officials say they suspect that the leaker could be an American, but do not rule out pro-Russian elements. Estonia's parliament voted in favor of Prime Minister Kaja Kallas staying in office. This shows how Estonia is okay with her plans to raise taxes and defense spending in the face of perceived threats from neighbor Russia. Kallas said that the country needed to refill its defense stocks after transferring supplies to Ukraine. Estonia has been the top supplier of military equipment to Ukraine by the share of GDP, having sent more than 1% of her government agreed to increase defense spending to 3% of the GDP for years 2024 from 2027 from 2.85% in 2023. Switzerland's parliament has rejected a Credit Suisse rescue package. This included $120.87 billion in financial guarantees and a largely symbolic vote as the government commitment made using emergency law cannot be overturned. Credit Suisse was taken over by rival UBS for 3 billion Swiss francs and propped up with more than 250 billion Swiss francs in guarantees and support. This has drawn widespread criticism. In the merger last month, Swiss emergency law was used so that a subgroup of 6 members of parliament approved the financial commitment on behalf of the legislative body. Syria's foreign minister Faisal Miqdad has arrived in Saudi Arabia in a visit that signals that Syria's decade-long regional isolation is nearing an end. Miqdad landed in Saudi Red Sea city of Jeddah on Wednesday, following an invitation from his Saudi counterpart. This marks the first visit by a senior Syrian diplomat to the kingdom in more than a decade, following an agreement between Riyadh and Damascus to re-establish ties and reopen their embassies. The resumption of ties marks the most significant development in moves by Arab states to normalize links with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who was shunned by many Western and Arab states after Syria's civil war began in 2011. United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed arrived in Egypt capital Cairo on Wednesday, though the leader has not shared details and the reason for this visit. This visit comes shortly after Syrian Foreign Minister arrived in Saudi Arabia. Sheikh Mohammed met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi at the airport. According to the footage shown on Egyptian state TV, the two allies have maintained close political and economic ties. Rival protesters faced off in the Israeli town of Hadar late Wednesday as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attended Mono celebrations, an event marked by Moroccan Jews a day after Jewish Passover. Government supporters and anti-government protesters chanted and traded insults as mounted police separated them. Tensions have been high among Israelis protesting a planned judicial overhaul by the Netanyahu government. For 3 months, hundreds of thousands of people have repeatedly taken to the streets week after week to demonstrate against these reforms. A group of journalists protested on Wednesday in the Bolivian capital of La Paz against a new press bill promoted by the government's majority in Congress. The government has said that the bill is intended to be a complementary measure to be in accordance with the international human rights. It includes one article that penalizes racism, hate discourse, discrimination, and racial superiority ideology. The Press Federation of La Paz, however, fears that the law can ban and can be used against legitimate investigations against government officials and has dubbed the initiative as a gag bill. And violence escalated in Bolivia's capital during teachers' protests. Police and teachers shoved and hit each other during the protests on Wednesday. Teachers protested against a new curriculum established by the Education Ministry and to demand more funds for their sector. Violence rose with police firing tear gas and paint pellets at protesters who ran away from gas, responding with sticks and explosives. Students in Chile faced off with police on Wednesday during a march against a new law that calls for harsher punishments for crimes against police. In capital Santiago, protesters threw objects at the riot police when faced with multiple water cannons to clear a march against this particular law, which increases penalties for crimes against police while giving them more powers. The law was published this week in Chile's official gazette and has been criticized by human rights groups. Amnesty International said the law could increase police abuse and impunity and is an enormous step back in terms of advancing police reforms. As government in Colombia started evacuations amid an orange alert for a probable eruption of Nevado del Ruiz volcano, owners of hotels, bars, restaurants in the vicinity of the volcano say they've experienced heavy losses. Volcanic ash and seismic activity has been reported as increasing in recent weeks. The alert indicates that an eruption is probable but not imminent. The volcano's last major eruption took place in 1985. It unleashed mudslides that buried the town of Armero and killed about 25,000 people. Dancers performed tango to call for financial help for countries impacted economically by the climate and biodiversity crisis on Wednesday in front of the IMF building in Washington. The dancing couple interrupted China and IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva and performed alongside a singer-activist dressed as Argentina who told the audience about the impact of climate change and the current financial architecture on the economy and society, an exemplary in South American country. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.